Hello, my name is Cole Hornaday, and welcome back to the Panel Jumper. Secret identities are a key component to comic book culture. Clark Kent is Superman, Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Peter Parker slings himself around New York City as Spider-Man. In literature, secret identities manifest themselves in the alter egos of novelists. Ernest Hemingway is Nick Adams, Sylvia Plath is Esther Greenwood, and Kurt Vonnegut masquerades himself around Ilium, New York as Kilgore Trout. Wholly fictitious characters channeling the thoughts and emotions of their authors. But who's to say comics and literature are so different? Allow me to introduce you to one Steve Gerber, sullen of eye, rapier of wit, straight of edge, a man of great melancholies and greater mirth, keen to trod the complacency and heady self-indulgent ramparts of the 1970s post-hippie culture beneath his sneaker-shod feet.
Oh, I hate Puppet Group on Wednesday. Fine, half off everything on that shelf over there. And wouldn't you know it, my felt allergies are back.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
You know I am. Squirrel Girl!
Upon first arriving at Marvel Comics, it soon became apparent that Gerber was an active observer of the baby boomer generation. He had no allegiance to left, right, or center, which allowed him to create a handful of weird and satirical characters that both skewered and celebrated the waning counterculture movement. But it was a throwaway Man-Thing background character that Gerber created in 1973 that became the perfect mouthpiece for his irascible voice and acerbic nature. A character he'd call Howard the Duck. No, wait a sec. I know what you're thinking. Why should I care about that terrible movie? Well, there's good reason, and we'll get to the why soon enough. But before we do, come with me on a little journey, and allow me to introduce you to the real Howard the Duck. An anthropomorphic duck from another dimension, Howard was a creature trapped in a world he never made, suffering not only the indignity of being a talking duck in a world of hairless apes, but a mad world populated with vampire cows, mop-swinging, smiley-faced gurus of censorship, yellow journalists turned bell-headed supervillains, and maniac gingerbread men, to name but a few. And though it was a funny comic, Howard was not a comedic character. Oh no. The guy was frequently depressed, sarcastic, rude, and had little interest in the feelings of others. He breached boundaries of taste and social mores, especially when it came to his relationship with his red-headed human female paramour, Beverly Switzler. Howard was, in the words of his creator, the living embodiment of all that was querulous, opinionated, and uncool.
Hi, Manager Mike.
What the fish? Who are you?
Don't you remember me? I'm your alter ego, Mike the Pike. You lovingly created me in your journals and sketchbooks when you were just a small fry. You went on so many adventures through me. Together, we were two fish out of water. I'm basically you in fish form.
I don't remember that.
Well, you are old. Your memory is fading.
Shut up. I'm not old. I'm a fine vintage.
Gerber would later admit he found Howard's voice almost immediately upon creating the character, because the duck's nature was so deeply reflective of his own. The frustrated idealist whose cynicism and sarcasm are his only defense against utter emotional implosion. You see, Gerber just got the duck. Howard fandom hit fast and hard, motivating Marvel to give the Duck his own comic in 1976. Collectors and dealers smelled profit on the wind and snatched up cases of the first issue from distributors before they could even reach the newsstand. Capitalizing on the buzz, Gerber came up with the Get Down America, Vote Howard the Duck for President campaign, and he and his then girlfriend/creative partner Mary Screens sold hundreds of buttons and garnered Howard thousands of write-in votes at the 1976 polls. Marvel wasn't blind to the counterculture gold they had and began exploring the potential of Howard's reach. They introduced a Howard the Duck daily newspaper strip that Gerber insisted he write. With this, he went from freelancer to contracted Marvel employee. Gerber was in complete control of Howard, or so he thought. Howard's rising popularity drew the attention of the house the mouse built. And Walt Disney's attorneys had deep concerns regarding the physical similarities between their own Donald Duck and Howard. Under the threat of legal action, they demanded a Duck redesign, the greatest concession being Howard must wear pants. Marvel, not wanting to face down Goliath, agreed, and Howard endured a makeover.
Here's another
got a letter from Mr. Gerber, sir. He says if you try to force him to put pants on Howard the Duck, he'll quit.
Tell him if he's late again with another script, he won't have to worry about his character's wardrobe anymore.
Yes, sir.
What's with this guy in pants?
Gerber was a brilliant storyteller, but deadlines were his greatest nemesis. He was under contract to write the regular Howard comic, 6 weekly newspaper strips, the ongoing Captain America comic, not to mention his editorial duties and outside freelance projects. Due to the chronic lateness of his scripts, Marvel saw fit to terminate his contract in 1978. His last Howard script would be issue number 27. No problem, right? Gerber could just take Howard and go work for DC or anybody else, couldn't he? Nope. Up until that time, comic book publishers stuck to a work-for-hire mandate, wherein individuals responsible for generating a product were obliged to give up ownership of their work for payment. Marvel, not Gerber, owned all rights to Howard, and they were going to keep him.
Who was my middle school crush?
Which one? There were so many.
8th grade homeroom.
Mandy Floyd.
And my nickname for my algebra teacher?
Mr. No Joy Division.
What was my final project in cardboard shop?
Duh.
Wow. Guess you really are my alter ego. So why are you here?
I want to reconnect with you. I want to learn everything about you and what you do here.
Okay, come on.
Gerber was pissed about being canned by Marvel. He didn't want his job back. He wanted his duck. He fired off a telegram that stated in no uncertain terms that Howard was his intellectual property and his alone. Marvel was unmoved.
By endorsement of this check, I, the payee, acknowledge full payment for employment with Marvel Inc. and for my assignment to it, release any copyright, trademark, and any other rights in or related to the material, and including my assignment of any rights to the renewal copyright.
Signed, Steve Gerber.
They wrote that on the back of each check. Seriously. Gerber didn't have a leg to stand on, and Marvel went ahead and attempted to capitalize on Howard the Duck's name. Late 1978. Authored by a handful of writers deaf to Howard's voice, the comic book becomes a lackluster in-house parody that finally augers into the ground with issue number 31. 1979. Marvel introduces a black and white magazine format version of Howard, scripted by Bill Mantlo. It ran for 9 issues. 1980. Marvel licenses the character for a radio series starring Jim Belushi. You haven't heard of this, for a reason. And finally, 1986. 20th Century Fox releases Howard the Duck. And this, my friends, this is why you're paying attention to this story. You have seen this movie, and you, like me, have hated this movie. Few films have been vilified like Howard the Duck. Produced by George Lucas and written and directed by his American Graffiti cronies William Hike and Gloria Katz, the film festers and malingers like an overlooked Easter egg in Granny's backyard, baking in the high heat of the summer. In 2014, it was listed as one of the greatest box office bombs of all time. You see, Marvel didn't get the duck. Gerber got the duck. What must that feel like to have your creation, your baby, your very soul misrepresented to such a large audience base? That wasn't Gerber's Howard the Duck up there on the big screen. That was somebody else's. Gerber felt helpless, so he did the only thing he knew he could do. He sued Marvel a lot, and in doing so, got himself into a mountain of debt. Sadly, Gerber's story is not unique. Jack Kirby, the allfather of superhero comics, had also been struggling. Not just to get his piece of the pie, but the return of his original artwork as well. In fact, in 1982, Gerber and Kirby created Destroyer Duck in an attempt to combat their legal fees. Look familiar? Published through Eclipse Comics, one of the earliest creator-owned companies, Destroyer Duck wouldn't win any awards, but it would garner public recognition of the need for greater solidarity within the industry. Precisely the type of allegiance 8 renegade creators would employ in 1992 when they marched out of Marvel en masse to start their own creator-owned company, Image Comics. Gerber knew he'd never get Howard back from Marvel, and publicly admitted it was time for he and the Duck to go their separate ways. The parting would be temporary, however, as Gerber and Marvel would settle their lawsuits out of court for an undisclosed sum. And though Gerber still didn't own Howard, in 1996, Marvel invited him back to pen an issue of Spider-Man Team Up, featuring everybody's favorite wall crawler and, you guessed it, Howard the Duck. Gerber suggested they go one better and have an unofficial crossover between Spider-Man Team Up and Destroyer Duck as well, which he'd also write. Spider-Man Team Up editor Tom Brevoort was reluctant and nervous to trust Gerber, but he relented. His anxieties were justified, however, as Gerber pulled something so fast and loose, nobody saw it coming. In a story that involved Spider-Man and Howard liberating a cloning factory, the two Marvel characters charged in from one end of the building, while Destroyer Duck and Eric Larson's Savage Dragon came in from the other. A massive duck clone free-for-all ensues, and in the melee, Savage Dragon and Destroyer Duck make off with a white duck and his red-headed companion. They return to their own dimension, where the duck and his dame enter into a witness protection program under assumed names. Gerber got the duck, and Howard, now Leonard, happily resides in another dimension, without pants and safe from the clutches of Marvel, in Gerber's eyes and those of his many knowing fans. How many consumers, I wonder, really grok the backstory of their favorite comic icons? Gerber was a litigious scrapper and fought for Howard for any number of reasons, the least of which being the character had become a profitable commodity. But who's to say Gerber didn't rally for the duck because said duck was such an intimate reflection of its creator?
So after sales close, you want to run the daily report and cross-check it with the total in the cash drawer. Minus the starting cash, of course, which can run anywhere between $200 and $500, depending on the day.
Ooh. Oh gosh, look at the time. I guess I should be going.
Hey, I thought you wanted to learn this stuff. Be my finny little sidekick.
Did I? Gosh.
In the decades following the Howard debacle, comic publishers have improved their contractual practices, and a great deal more attention is paid to the rights of all comic book creators, be they writers, illustrators, inkers, letterers, colorists, or editors. Still, many a creator has gone to their grave penniless and forgotten, while their creations still make our hearts to soar. So next time you pick up a comic book, please take a moment to reflect on the sacrifices and compromises that creator underwent to bring you that comic. Thanks for watching, and
We'll see you next time on the Panel Jumper.
That's my line.
Hey, what are you going to do? They got a mind of their own. Ha!
Special shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Hey, you can be a Patreon supporter too. Visit us at thepaneljumper.com.